Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome to this gathering. Name is Greg Coleridge. I'm one of the co-directors at Move to Amend, and very happy that all of you are here joining us on this special sort of late afternoon or early afternoon, depending on what part of the world, at least in the U.S., you are from, on how to outreach to and learn from working people and organize labor. So hopefully everyone can see the agenda here. Um, Try to minimize here. Here we go. I always like this meme, visual. It's the U and the I in union that makes us strong, is it not? Welcome. The call consists of this, doing a couple of quick logistics, introductions of who our presenters are, those presentations by the presenters themselves, and then your comments and questions. The logistics are these. Please, if you have not muted yourself yet, do so. This program is being recorded. Please be respectful toward others when it is time to comment, either verbally or chat. We really don't want to minimize you or mute you or anything along those lines. So we're in solidarity. Hey, that's what labor is all about. That's what Move to Men is all about. So let's act that way. The chat is not available during the presentations. So if you have any questions or comments that come to you as comments are being made in presentations being made, please mark those down separately. And then when the screen is no longer shared and the chat will open, and it is then that you can either put those questions or comments there, or if you wish to make a comment verbally, there'll be an opportunity to do that by raising your either virtual hand or your actual real hand. All right, presenters for today, as was mentioned in the info going out, is Lawrence Abbott. Lawrence and Linda are both the co-coordinators of our labor caucus. Lawrence, besides being co-coordinator, is a retired Teamsters driver, warehouse person. He's elected officer of the AFL-CIO, the Alameda Labor Council affiliate of the AFL-CIO. Also, just on the side, besides being a community activist and organizer, he is a wildlife biologist. Linda is a retired professor of classics at the University of Montana, has a wealth of background in working with labor in that part of the world of Montana and working with Move to Amend. Janie Spanos is co-director at Move to Amend. Cole Bennett, also co-director at Move to Amend, who will be sharing information about a very exciting recent endorsement and resolution that was passed in Atlanta. All right, so the program is, I've babbled at you long enough. Following this, Lawrence is going to give a brief history of labor and organizing. Linda, making the distinction between what it means as we go out there into the world and try to work at bringing about change, the distinction between advocacy, mobilizing, and organizing. And we want to be about the business of organizing. And then how do we reach and do outreach to working people and labor unions? What are lessons that we can learn from one another? And then a brief description of what has taken place recently with the Atlanta labor. Actually, it's North Georgia. I think Atlanta, North Georgia / or hyphen Atlanta Labor Council resolution. Jenny is going to then share some resources on our website that is particular to do labor organizing, some real helpful pieces that are available so that you don't have to start from zero. And then questions, discussions, and close. So with that, just a couple of pictures to sort of set the table, set the mood. This is what it's all about. We are worth more than just individually. We are worth more than just cogs in a machine. We are human beings and deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Move to Amend, our mission is a coalition of hundreds of organizations and hundreds of thousands of individuals, now up to 520,800 organizations that have endorsed this effort, committed to social and economic justice, ending corporate rule, and building a vibrant democracy that is genuinely accountable to people, not corporate interests. Our goals have always been not simply to pass the We the People amendment, as ambitious as that is, which in of itself would all by itself declare that artificial entities do not have constitutional rights and that money is not constitutionally protected free speech. Some real radical ideas, huh? And second, but more even than the We the People amendment is to be involved in ongoing discussion and organizing to go even beyond the We the People amendment. That is really the first step to make real the promise of democracy through constitutional renewal. So the We the People amendment is truly a stepping stone. Principles and values, which actually we like to think not only are ours, but that we share. If you think about it, and I'm sure maybe Lawrence will talk about it, our principles and values are those that largely have been shared by those very best people involved in the labor movement of commitment to anti-oppression and solidarity organizing, coalition and movement building. That's how you build power, grassroots organizing. That's how you build power and solidarity, dedication to political education, because we don't learn about this stuff in school. We got to educate ourselves. The dominant narrative culture will not do that for us. We have to find out how people have brought about change, whether they're in the labor movement or other movements that labor has supported and that Move to Amend is trying to learn lessons from as we build our own fundamental movement that is broad and deep for fundamental constitutional change. And lastly, so very important, both being politically and economically independent, because to be otherwise means that you are under the dictate, under the control, under the influence of, take your pick, big foundations, the super rich, like billionaires, political parties, government, or corporations, any one or ones of the above. So we got to be politically and economically independent. The We the People Amendment, that piece of what it is we're trying to focus on, here are the three provisions. Some of you may already know this from memory. It's basically to focus on the basic premises of the first being that a corporation is not a person. The second would dictate that federal, state, and local government shall regulate, limit, or prohibit contributions and expenditures. And thirdly, that nothing contained in this amendment shall be construed to abridge the freedom of the press. And we end this section by just simply saying, despite the fact that we have something called a Bill of Rights, Bill of Rights simply are thrown out the door the very moment you step 1 milli-inch across public ground into private territory, into corporate territory, onto your job. You have no Bill of Rights, you have no Fourth Amendment, search and seizure rights, and all the rest. So it's so important to understand that we have basically two societies, and I prefer the democratic one over the corporate one. Hopefully you do as well. So with that, turn it over to Lawrence.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's really a pleasure to be here. I see a lot of old friends in the chat and some new friends. And I'm going to start right out with my story. And actually, storytelling is a big part of organizing, especially for unions. And so Greg mentioned, that I just happen to be a wildlife biologist on top of everything else. But actually, that's my first love. That's what I had a passion for ever since I was a little kid, even before school, feeding the birds and catching lizards and whatnot. And so, after I became a biologist and started to grow up and learn what was happening to everything that I loved, it was easy to see that something was wrong. Something just wasn't right at all. So I heard about Move to Amend not long after Citizens United passed, and I heard about the concept of corporate rule and corporate power and unjust corporate power. And that was it for me. I saw the light. To me, everything that I wanted in the world for myself and for my children, later for my children, was sort of hinged on us not having corporate rule, on people power and good government balancing out corporate rule. So that's why I organized with Move to Amend. So let me get to labor. Labor is really simple. It's working people standing together for power. The boss had always had all the power. The corporation had all the power. But when we stand together, there's a lot more of us. We make whatever we make at the company, whatever we're doing, it's always the worker. So we actually have the power when we organize by standing together. And the who, what, whys, and whens of organizing. Um, it's really the reason that we need to organize is to get power to win justice. It's that simple, you know. And really, that works. Uh, Labor unions are just one type of organization, but any kind of organization, whether it's environmental justice, social justice, peace, we all need the same thing. We need power to win justice. But luckily, the labor unions sort of have the edge on power because we've been organizing for so long. The when of organizing is whenever we can, whenever we're in communication with somebody else, having a conversation. And at this point, I'd like to talk about the difference between the different types of organizing. You know, you can organize your closet or your garage. Sometimes that's a real challenge. But you can organize, say, to get somebody elected. But when we talk about deep organizing, we're talking about sort of replicating ourselves. We're building leaders, we're developing leaders. And so that all comes out of conversation. It all comes out of everyday work and building relationships. So the when is real simple. The who, it's also the people that we're in union with. We're teaching, training, educating, and recognizing that everybody we're with, you know, we're actually in leaderful organizations, especially labor. We're trying to spark that leader in everyone and inspire people, because one of the biggest blocks to organizing is sort of fear or thinking that we can't really do something, but we always have in the past. And that's why our saying in Spanish is "si se puede," yes we can. And we need to inspire, you know, new leaders, new organizers. And I think leaders and organizers can sort of be used interchangeably when those leaders understand the principles of organizing. And I think that's enough for that. By the way, as far as the timing, like when, these are really scary, dangerous times. You know, as we all know, it's just really you don't want to see the news, but we have to see the news. And it's actually the best time for organizing because we have a saying in the workplace that the worst boss is the best organizer. So these times we can't get too much done in certain ways. We can try to minimize the damage, but one thing we can do better than anything else in this time is organize, because people really see, you know, what's happening, and they're likely to pile on and do what maybe they wouldn't have done in the past, because these times are so scary. Next slide, please.
Oops.
Thank you, Greg. That's perfect. So the reason that we needed a labor movement and the reason it came was certainly out of exploitation. And that started probably as soon as there was such a thing as capitalism and corporations. And Move to Amend is a really great program on the history of corporations, really fascinating. So history is always, you know, incredibly important. The more you learn about history, the more we can protect ourselves in this present moment and maybe predict what's coming, because Move to Amend pretty much predicted where we'd be here if we didn't have the We the People Amendment by now. Corruption breeds more corruption, and of course that's why we're here. So the inequality that's created by capitalism and by corporations is why we need union power, why working people need to stand together, otherwise the boss has all the power. And if you search the internet, also, besides searching for the history of the labor movement, there's really good information. Also search the history of labor organizing, and really great clues in there for what's going on. I'd like to mention one thing at the end, though, number 3, Prop 22. I've been a political organizer for the Alameda Labor Council for a while. And when we tried to pass Prop 22, uh, the the special interests had so much money, and most of it was foreign money, which isn't even supposed to be in our elections. But like I said, we have corruption. That basically the corporations learned how much money it took to beat the people, and going forward, we hardly have a chance really in anything until we really grow this movement and create solidarity with not just labor, but all organizations, like I said before, both social justice, environmental justice, and peace groups. Next slide, please. So the history of labor and organizing, there's, well, I mentioned labor, layers of organizing already. I want to try to go through these slides as quick as possible, so I don't want to be redundant. Um, so basically, if you go to this link, it has really good, it's a link to a book that you can buy, but you don't have to buy the book. If you look in that website a little closer, it is all about the secrets of successful organizing. And then also in the resources at the very end, you'll find a lot more resources. But again, it's all about communication. And it doesn't, after a while, organizing isn't really a thing. It's just happens spontaneously. Anytime you talk to somebody, we all have the same concerns. And then as Move to Amend people, we also have solutions. So it's basically listening to people with their concerns and, hey, we have a solution. So please do check the resources at the very end. Next slide, please. So for me, the my favorite organizing tips are storytelling. So I love talking about nature, and a lot of people like talking about nature too. And it usually always leads to, all roads lead to the We the People Amendment. You know, all roads, when people see suffering in the world, it's almost always the fact that we need more power, and we can solve solutions if we had legal power. And we do have power, actually, if we learn how to stand up for it. And I think that's it. I want to say some more later on in this presentation, but I'll get back to you soon. Next slide, please.
All right, I think this is where Linda.
And oh, Linda, I get to introduce you. Are you there? We're big fans of each other because we've been, as volunteers, we've been working together for a long time to.
Maybe you're muted, Linda.
I am I not now?
There she
There we are.
is. Hi, Linda.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Lawrence, how are you? Yeah, Lawrence and I have a coast to coast mutual admiration society that we formed up through Move to Men. I just want to say briefly, my story is that I come very rather late, not to the idea of unions, but to my experience, direct experience with unions. I taught at institutions of higher learning for decades and decades. And it was only when I came to the University of Montana, and a couple of you people will know the University of Montana, that I joined a unionized faculty. Most university faculties are not unionized, and ours was at the University of Montana. And I was teaching there for about 25 years. And for about like half or three quarters of that time, I was strongly involved with the union and had occasion to know, both from my experience, long experience just with how decisions are made in higher education, post-secondary education, that the union was really a great thing for us to have at the University of Montana. What it meant was that we all agreed on what standards would be. We had a contract which expressed those standards, which was signed by faculty representatives as well as administrative representatives, and we lived by that contract, and nobody could change it single-handedly. So I really became convinced that unions are the way to go, and people power is the way to go. We don't have the money power, but we have the people power. And we can get more of it if we learn to organize well. So my part today is to talk about three concepts which are deep into the idea of union life and building power in unions, but also really in just any other kind of movement where people are going to be involved and where we want people to be able to make a change. And the materials that I've taken, these specific ones, come from a book that I'm going to recommend here. I've put it on the slide, called No Shortcuts: Organizing for Power in the New Gilded Age. And it's a wonderful book by a woman who died just in 2024 at age 59, far too soon. Her name was Jane McAlevey. And she is a hero for many of us who work in unions and support unions. She used to talk about whole worker organizing. That means your entire community, not just your work community, but your entire community inside and outside the working place is involved in what the union tries to work for, because it's the greater good model of university or of labor organizing. So I think most of us really admire her. And Lawrence, you had a chance to talk with her once, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. She was doing a lot of work at the UC Berkeley Labor Center, and she gave a great presentation. At the end of her talk, I got to ask her about the We the People Amendment, and if she thought that labor would be enthusiastic to get behind it. And she said, "Well, I'm not saying that it's not the most important thing for labor. It is." And it kind of surprised me that she said it was the most important thing for labor, because that's how I feel. And she just talked about how the capacity of unions is so hard. So when you're reaching out to unions and sometimes you feel like they're ignoring you, if you're a move to amender and you want to get a resolution or get some support, well, they're not ignoring you. They're just it's a question of capacity, and keep working to get in touch with them, because they will get back to you eventually if you stay on them.
Yeah. Persist, persist,
Yeah,
persist.
but we sure miss her.
We
Yep.
sure do. We sure do. Okay, so these three concepts are advocacy, mobilizing, and organizing. And for each one, we want to notice what its theory of power is. That is, how does it gain the ability to make change? Um, each has a strategy, a way of working, and the kinds of things it relies on to get things done to create change. Each implies, and this is important particularly for organizing, each implies a different relationship between the movement and regular people. How important are regular community folks in the movement and a success? And then every one of these has its own particular goal. And what I'm going to get around to is that organizing is the really valuable one. Partly because it can lead to lasting change rather than just temporary change. So, first of all, advocacy. We all know what it means to advocate for something. Some groups are advocacy groups. I belong to the League of Women Voters. We're an advocacy group, basically. The theory of power behind advocacy is basically originates in the elite, in the leadership class, not to talk about economic classes, but amongst the elite, let's say, a few people, maybe not in public at all, negotiate for change. And they might persuade the power players, and then change occurs. Their strategy is, again, for those same advocates to do the negotiating. They don't show up with a bunch of people, they just show up and they talk to the power players. Third, it's not really relying on people power at all. Again, this is the advocate who does the advocating on their own to the power players. And fourth, advocacy usually has a limited one-time goal or a narrow policy change that it wants. And once that's achieved, the advocacy is over. And what we're going to see is organizing is different from that. Okay, mobilization now. In mobilization, again, what does it mean to mobilize? It means to bring out crowds. A mobilizer is somebody who can bring out crowds. The mobilizer is not the crowds. The mobilizer brings out the crowds. The strategy relies on optics, big, noisy crowds, wherever, happy crowds, sad crowds, whatever, big, noisy crowds. But the action really is determined by the elites again, by the leaders. Let's just say leaders, since that's a little bit less hackneyed than elite by now. So the action is determined by and largely carried out by the leaders. And there may be a march or whatever, but that's not exactly what mm, mm, creates the punch, let's say. And then again, mobilization usually mobilizes a mob of people to effect a narrow policy change. And then once that policy change is made, then the large crowds go away, right? Again, it's not the crowds who make the change, it's the mobilizers who make the change. Okay, Greg? And then we get to organizing. And again, this is a theory of organizing that's, I think, fairly well spread now, but I learned about it first from Jane McAlevey. We understand organizing as powerful in that it's inclusive and collective. And the power resides in regular people who are leaders in their own community and agitate on their own behalf. Right? So it's not somebody coming in and telling them what to do, right? The strategy is that change is determined by the community through community action. That is, it's not a small group that shows up to negotiate the organized change, but it's actually the people themselves. Those people speak for themselves, act for themselves, determine for themselves what their goal is, and then carry it out. And most importantly, maybe, particularly in our times, Lawrence was talking about the importance of our day, our moment. Organizing is about building a community of people who can identify a problem in their community and take action to change that problem, no matter when it happens. So organizing is about persistent power to change, right? So we may achieve one victory today, and we may achieve another 3 weeks down the pike, or whatever the scale may be. You see what I mean? So it's not that we show up to say, let's overturn Citizens United. That's gosh knows, it's a very expansive, it's a very ambitious goal, but it's only one single goal. If we were able to do that, then things would be better, but that would be the end of our mobilizing or our advocacy. But organizing intends to form a whole community of people who are able and willing to use their power whenever it's necessary to make good change for their community. So that's organizing, and that's what we're really going for. So if we think about how do we organize, how do we do organizing, and there's a lot of jargon being thrown around about this, but basically, and this is something that Greg talked about at the beginning, we want to be in conversation with people. It may be in a union context. It may be, I myself am sort of interested in a broader working class context, and maybe in the context of rural and urban people talking together. We want to listen to people, help them identify their own problem, and establish relationships with them. So this isn't something that just happens overnight, like a flash dance or whatever. This is something which takes time. It means, as Lawrence said to me the other day, it's asking questions respectfully and really listening for the answers. One of the things that McAlevey talks about is organic leaders. That is, we need, as we just wander around in our lives as we look at groups, we need to try to understand who seems to be a leader in that group? Who's the person people turn to for advice or for help or whatever in that group? And we need to be able to sort of um, work with them and listen to them. The technique we use is power mapping, and that means we consult with the community, in the community, about who has the power to make the change that the community wants to have made. And then we search for what the solutions might be. And now, as far as our work with Move to Amend is concerned, we're always thinking about the Move to Amend, We the People mm, amendment, but we need to be able to think in our own heads about how that responds to, as Lawrence said, it happens all the time, how that responds to the needs of a particular community. So, and I know Gilles Stockton is here and he could tell me much more about this, but if I went to a rancher or a farmer and said, just as we were sitting around the table at the coffee shop, I know that's kind of a hard picture to get in your mind, isn't it? But in any case, there you go. No, um, we were sitting around in a coffee shop, and Gilles started saying to me, well, ranchers have a bad time because four huge international corporations concern all of the meat production and distribution and that kind of thing that small farmers used to and ranchers used to control, right? Well, that to me says Move to Amend because that's corporate power, overweening power by the corporations, which is crushing the small rancher or farmer or whatever. So that's we all who work in Move to Amend and kind of live and breathe this corporate power thing really realize that those connections are there and you can make those connections for people once you have a relationship with them, and then it's just your job to say, how can I help you, right? To do whatever they need you to do to help them. So you're not going to be their leader, you're going to be in the trenches with them, right? And help them learn the power that they do have so that the next time something arises, they know we can get ourselves together and use people power. Because people power and money power are not the same thing. And here's a little graphic that my friends have loved for the past several years, and I think we'll still be seeing that pretty often in the next few years. But that's what it means to organize, is to help a community determine what its problem is, what its need is, and then find a way to be able to solve that problem or fill the need through their own power. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Lawrence. Another graphic, solidarity, coming together, acting together, supporting one another is what it's all about. Being an organizer is another, maybe ultimate form of having superpower. Bring people together so they can unlock the beauty, power, wisdom that's in these street shop sites, back roads. Then we can get out there and demand changes that our people need. All right, so this slide, I'm just going to call back. We got maybe setting aside 10 minutes or so for this, but this is going to be the launching pad for discussions that will come after a couple more slides. But this is sort of a different way to say the same thing of what Linda just organized, of how do we organize. Some of the same sort of sequential talking points or suggestions here are reflected. I can get back to it here, of how do we outreach to working people, labor unions for Move to Amend and We the People amendment. So there's just a couple of steps. And Lawrence, you want to just start out?
Yeah, Greg, thank you. I'd love to take number one because I feel like I have some insider tips and tricks on reaching out to your local union. When you first start out, you always sort of, when you're young, you just sort of feel awkward. At least I always feel awkward around a lot of people. Over time, though, amazingly, I sort of became an insider myself into my local labor movement. So I really understand how the processes work, the democratic processes for making decisions and bylaws and such. So if any move to amender or anybody that needs to reach out to labor for power and solidarity, it helps to know a few things. So um, the key elements are that the rank and file members ask leadership. So you might call up a union and let them know that you feel the We the People Amendment resolution would really be beneficial for their union, and you'd love to come and talk about it or maybe give a presentation. So the first step would be to, call them up and ask that they put it on the meeting agenda. And especially if you can find somebody that is a move to amend person or somebody that possibly could be one who already has labor roots. So they already have a union that's protecting them at their job site, and they can bring that to their leadership and get it put on their agenda for a meeting and see if maybe a resolution. We have really great resolutions. And in fact, the best resolution that I've ever seen for labor to advance and promote the We the People Amendment has just occurred in Atlanta, Georgia, and North Georgia. And it's incredibly exciting. We'll talk about it a little more later. Then once you find a local union that will endorse the We the People Amendment, then that union can take it to the local labor council. And the way labor councils work, so at my labor council, at the Alameda Labor Council, I'm a delegate that represents my Teamsters union, Teamsters Local 70 out of Oakland. And say I went to Teamsters, which I actually did in the past, and got support. And the local Teamsters union is now, if you go to our website that lists the organizations, movetoamend.org /organizations, you'll find Teamsters Local 70 there. So then they can bring it to the Labor Council, and the same process. Somebody will say that you would like the Labor Council to consider supporting, a resolution of their own. So you would take it to get on the agenda for the executive committee to approve the resolution. You might go there before the executive committee and present the resolution, or a union person more likely would do that from one of the affiliated unions. And then once they approve it, then it goes to the full delegates, which is in our cases the week after the executive committee, for final approval and adoption. And that's exactly what I did for the Alameda County Labor Council. And with Greg's help, who came all the way to the San Francisco Bay Area to help us get that done. So there can be just a resolution that, says that they support the We the People Amendment, but that doesn't get us very far. I think we really need to ask what we really want, and that we want them to become unions and labor councils to become full partners in actively advocating for and advancing the We the People Amendment, as what just happened in Atlanta, North Georgia. So once we learn about that, you can get a hold of that. I think we're going to have a link to it in our resources. And that explains everything about how the We the People Amendment benefits the unions and what they need to do to advance it. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. I've never, as in all my years of volunteering for Move to Amend, I don't think we've ever had a more powerful tool. And then if you are looking for a labor-friendly union, there are unions that already are quite friendly to Move to Amend. In California, in the Bay Area, the UAW 2865 represents the postdocs at the University of California, and they had already supported the We the People Amendment, and they helped bring that to my Alameda Labor Council. SEIU might be another union that would be supportive. CWA, Communication Workers of America, possibly the nurses, because a lot of them are working to try to get, Medicare for all or healthcare for all, and they really need the We the People Amendment. in the Bay Area, we also had a postal service union that was helping us bring that. So, Greg, do you know of any more local unions that in the past have been supportive to advance the We the People Amendment?
Well, one of the items on the website that I think Jenny may refer to here momentarily has a listing of some of the major unions that have taken a position.
Okay, and then so that's pretty much it
Yep.
for my tips and tricks on how to reach out to your union. And then I'll just start off number two. I just wanted to say that in developing a relationship for the community, most labor councils have a community services director that reaches out to the community, and we want to feel like we do support the community, and we want to hear from the community. But again, they're really busy, so you got to reach out more than once. But a good way to do that is to show up, especially if there are strikes. A lot of times you'll hear about upcoming strikes in the newspaper, and just show up and walk the picket line with them as Move to Amend. And you might be able to spark a conversation that fits. If not, they will get to see your face there and they'll get to know you. And that's part of the long-term organizing that it takes to do a long-term project like amending the Constitution. So I'm going to step back a little bit because I understand that white males tend to talk too much and let somebody else chime in.
Linda, you want to pick up on any of the other items here we have listed?
Sure.
Again, this is sort of a different way to say some of what you said before.
Yeah. I think, again, just listen. Make certain we're listening and not just answering questions before they're asked. I think we just have to show up. As Lawrence said, we have to build real trust and solidarity. Solidarity is how you get things done. It's an old union world word, but it works in any kind of group. A good old friend of ours in Move to Amend used to say, just go to another group's meetings and sit in their meeting and help them out with what they're doing. And they'll finally say, somebody will say, oh, who are you? And then you can introduce yourself. And then you can say, I'm here because I'm interested in Move to Amend and working class people and so on and so forth. So I think that whole idea of putting yourself in places where people are and being open to conversation with people, but not only speaking, also listening. That's huge. And then you can move into talking about the sort of the common issues that we at Move to Amend talk about and they talk about.
And Linda, I've been doing that for
Yes,
years, and it's a lot of fun. You meet a whole new set of friends. So I have so
that's
many
right.
friends now, I can't even, I had compartmentalized them all. So I have my indivisible friends, my Our Revolution friends. And in Our
Yeah.
Revolution, when these issues and concerns come up, I really feel like the We the People Amendment is the heart and soul of Bernie Sanders' political revolution, because that's what he wants is to undo the corruption, restore good government. And, that's just none of that's going to happen without the We the People Amendment. So it's just exciting to do that. And then with Indivisible, it's opened so many doors for me to show up at my congressman's office. And then once they endorse the We the People Amendment, then we bring that, to our meetings with congressional reps. So it's just a lot of fun. And senators, too, asking them to, get the We the People Amendment as a Senate joint resolution also.
So we
Right.
just have two
Well,
more
and I think,
pieces. Oh,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry,
Linda.
Greg, go ahead.
I was just going to say we just have two more
I
pieces
was
here.
just
We do
going to
want to.
say,
Yeah.
again, in our moment, lots and lots and lots of groups are working on issues which it turns out are shared issues with us. We all have many of the same problems, and that's what we need. We need all of us working together because they're huge problems and just a few people won't solve them. Greg,
Right.
thank
Yep.
you.
And once you find those shared issues, then number 6 on this list is, all right, how can we figure out how to intersect the solutions that the groups we're working with that can't be achieved right now because of corporate power and money capturing the political system? How can we connect to lift that up, and how we need to work with those groups and those groups need to work with us? And some of those mutual actions and solutions can consist of doing a joint education program, developing a joint educational piece that connects worker rights to lack of uh, to why we don't have worker rights because of corporate rights, finding the intersection, doing the pledge, developing a resolution, speaking to one another's groups, lots of potential ways to sort of join together and find common ground and see the connections. So, all right, with that,
Greg, may I say one
sure.
more thing? I'm living down here in the South in North Carolina, where we don't have a whole lot going on in the area of labor unions because that's the way the system wants it. But there are service workers and other low income workers who are joining together, despite the fact that they don't have a certified union, joining together to make the same kinds of demands in their workplaces that certified unions do. So we're moving.
Good point. So it doesn't have to be certified, organized. It can be more of ad hoc or in, not quite as formalized working
Right.
people groups. Connect with them. Might be actually easier to do that.
And Greg,
All right.
real quick, you mentioned, some of the things like the pledge to amend and uh, all the little steps that we have, the candidates pledge, the individual sign onto the motion to amend, um, asking House members to co-sponsor. We have such a nice, simple thing that people can actually do and plug into. And I think so many people want to do something, but they don't know they can actually do these things to grow a movement. So thanks for mentioning those.
I want to call in Cole. Cole's been involved in this effort, as has some move to amend labor activists in the Atlanta, North Georgia Labor Council arena. Cole, take a couple minutes.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Cole Bennett. I'm going to keep this relatively brief. We had wanted one of our volunteers and someone who's very involved in labor, Al Herman, down here in Atlanta, to be able to say a bit, but he is unavailable, taking care of his mother in New York. So we wish him the best. But he and I just he is part of the board of the Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council. We just got a resolution passed by them in support of the We the People Amendment, and they've been a great resource just in the past month or so, in kind of greasing the wheels a little bit and really being a driving force here in Atlanta for the We the People Amendment. So what I will say about it is, the resolution that we passed, this is something that you can do fairly easily. Al Herman is on the board of the Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council, but it's a matter of kind of getting into the place where you need to be, and becoming involved in not only your local union, but in these kind of administrative structures as well. But the resolution that we got passed, we met. Made quick presentations at the monthly meetings, and it was passed almost essentially unanimously. And the resolution that we got passed is Al took it basically from our website. We have plenty of resources and model resolutions for organizations like labor councils, for city councils, any kind of organization you're looking to kind of get on board. Al just basically took it, copy pasted it, adapted it to the Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council, and it was passed, pretty much as is. And so, if there's any advice I can impart, kind of from more of the move to amend side and the more political side, is that be ambitious with this kind of stuff. Local resolutions and endorsements from things like labor councils are going to be really important moving forward, as has kind of been mentioned with Trump coming in, and there just being a lot of tomfoolery afoot in the political world. These things that it's such a cliche, but saying politics is local, it really is. Labor unions and labor in general is just a tremendous force, not only for it's not only a political force and a way to apply political pressure, but as an organizing force as well, as both Linda and Lawrence have already said. But in terms of it, you know, Lawrence kind of alluded to this, but things are going to be really hard to get done in certain ways over the next however long this kind of fascist period that we're going through lasts. But right now, I really think is a time that again, Lawrence mentioned that legislators are starting to listen a little bit more. Regular people are just looking for ways to get involved, and so really, this is a time to make this a household issue and really get people talking about the relationship between corporate constitutional rights, the adverse relationship it has usually on workers' rights. And again, coming from not necessarily a labor background, it's an easy bridge to make between the We the People Amendment and labor concerns, and just having more rights for us, the individuals. And there is really great, Linda, you talked about solidarity. There's really great solidarity there. And I think this is the type of thing that, in most places, if you get something like this introduced, it will be passed, just like it was here in Atlanta, because people get it. It's not a big jump to go from, corporations having more rights means that we have less. So, we're going to go through a period where, everything in the book is going to be kind of thrown away in favor of corporations and in favor of limiting workers' rights. And our greatest tool is, as we've said, to organize and really kind of bite back a little bit and go on the offensive.
Right.
Yeah. And Jenny's going to talk more about those resources I mentioned. Again, the Move to Web website has a bunch of resources, a bunch of useful things, so that you don't have to, do all the work yourself. Lawrence, you have a hand raised. If you have a question, I'll answer it, and then if not,
Yeah, Cole. I just wanted to say that what really struck me about the resolution that was passed in Atlanta is that the unions didn't just support the resolution, support the We the People Amendment, but they've committed to actually do specific things to advance it. And that's what's huge to me. And I'm committed now to taking the Atlanta resolution, taking it back to my Alameda labor caucus. Take it back to the Alameda Central Labor Council and see if I can upgrade the old resolution, which is merely a support resolution, but get one where they commit to actually advance it. Using some of the Move to Amend techniques, like ask during candidate interviews, asking the candidates if they support it and making that a criteria, whether labor is going to support them or not, find out if they support our power first. So, it's really exciting. Thank you, Cole.
yeah, absolutely. And just briefly touching on that, again, really be ambitious with this. As you said, Lawrence, things are changing, and people are going to be more willing to look at stronger changes and more fundamental changes to the structures of our government, and just of our local governances. Here in Atlanta, we got this resolution passed by the Labor Council. We have one of the worst states for workers' rights, or the most lax regulations on employers. And I think that there's a correlation there, that I think if there's anything I can impart on you, it's just, be ambitious, shoot for the moon, and kind of end up, if there's parts that get taken out, or there's, discussions that are had, those are good discussions to have, to just be talking about the relationship between corporate constitutional rights and individual rights, and corporate personhood. It's ridiculous, and
Great.
more people knew about it, more people would be mad about it. Yeah, Linda, you also.
Thanks. Okay.
Just
we do
one
need to
second,
move.
Jenny. Sorry. Jenny, Cole, thank you for that. And I wonder, will you be putting your Atlanta, North Georgia resolution on the website somewhere so that we can all read it? Because I know it's a little long for reading here on the show, but if you would put it on the website, that'd be grand.
Yeah, Linda, that is a great segue into our next section, and I'll pass it off to Jenny.
Thank you.
You, Lauren, Linda, Cole, and Greg. Great information so far. My name is Jenny Spanos. I'm a national co-director with the Move to Amend Coalition. I started with the coalition shortly after the Citizens United decision came down. Shortly after Move to Amend started, I started as a volunteer. I've seen the organization grow. I've seen the need grow as we continue to meet the moment. As Lawrence said, Move to Amend predicted what we are now facing, right? The writing was already on the wall 15 years ago. It is the 15th anniversary of Citizens United, which was built on precedents of over 100 years of corporations hijacking, rights meant for we the people. When they could no longer consider people property, now they got the Supreme Court to recognize their property as people, right? So this is a well-organized plan that they have rolled out over these years, and we are meeting this moment with a well-organized plan to take our power back and to take power and put it in the hands of the people. So our Move to Amend resources, as Cole said, we have lots of resources, right? We're not going to recreate the wheel on any of this because the wheel's already been created. I think one of our most important resources that we have is each other, right? So getting involved, showing up here, being present, and learning and working together is one of the key ways that we're going to be able to move the bill. The labor is key, right? Throughout the history of the US, since we've had capitalism, we've had to have organized labor, right, as a counterbalance. So, anyone that is a union member connected in any way with worker organization or already part of Move to Amend affiliate or advocates, which, or volunteers, which you are, please get involved with the Labor Caucus. We meet on the fourth Wednesday of every month. And really easy to get started. Just reach out to Greg at movetoamend.org, and he will get you on our list, and we'd come together and work. Beyond that, things that you can do independently. Lawrence had mentioned he uses a lot of what he learned through the movement education program to influence, to educate, and to skill up for the organizing work he's done. Lawrence had started out as a volunteer, moved into Labor Caucus, just as Linda did. I want to share a story with the former chair of the Labor Caucus, Mike Ferner. He is, some of y'all may know him as the president of Veterans for Peace. So he started as a volunteer with Move to Amend. He moved on to the Labor Caucus. He ultimately ended up chairing the caucus, and what brought him to this work was his peace work, right? And where he went to organize labor was his fellow brothers and sisters, veterans, who also valued peace. So he brought Move to Amend to Veterans for Peace, and they passed a resolution in support. They've come on as full partners. And they have, again, made it part of their strategic plan to get the We the People Amendment passed. So, this is solidarity across the board and the reason I bring that up is because I just wanted to kind of demonstrate the mycelium of organizing and the power that you can bring it wherever you're at, whatever your interest is, whether it's peace, whether it's, private for profit, prison abolition, whether it's for healthcare for all, wherever you go, wherever there's people, where there's workers, and wherever there's workers, there's power. They just may not have tapped into it yet, but that's where we can come in to be a part of that gel that brings folks together. So the Movement Education Program, again, is a very good resource to just kind of build a historical movement educational base for you. It not only has strategy, but it talks about history so that we don't fall into the same pitfalls that we did in the past. We can look at things that worked and things that didn't, and and learn and develop and grow from that. The next is our Take Action Toolkit. Now, this toolkit is in abundance. There is so much information in our toolkit for organizing and organizing to take action. It's broken down into a series of different types of kits, like affiliate organizing. So if you wanted to, develop an affiliate in your area, but in this capacity, outreach and engagement kits. It gives you detailed information, step by step, talking points, promotional resources, ways to help identify opportunities and engage with your community. There's petition and tabling kits so that if you're setting up somewhere, if you're going somewhere, you'll have all the resources that you need to be able to share this information and to grow support for the We the People Amendment in your area. Political organizing kit, as Cole had said, they brought the resolution to the council. The council, they talked about it, they agreed with it, they decided to come on as an endorsing organization and took it further. And now they are politically organizing with Move to Amend to bring on Ossoff as a senator in support of the We the People Amendment, as well as other House members in that area. Again, that's building your political power in your local communities. There's also public education kit that gives you everything you need to help raise up the education about how these CCRs, as we call them, or corporate constitutional rights, impact us in our everyday lives, and why and how much better things will be once we have ended that insane notion. Also, for media and communications, there's a kit so that you can develop creative messages, memes, arguments for why people should join the coalition. Just a ton of resources there. Some direct action kits. These kits offer a collection of artful ideas, graphics, designs, and creative materials to organize different actions in your community. And so those, again, I can't overemphasize how much valuable information is there in the Take Action Toolkit. We will be sharing this video and this slideshow with you after the call, so you'll have all of these resources at your fingertips. So don't worry about having that all right now. Also, I wanted to point out that we have a page dedicated to organizing labor. Can I share my page and go over some of this real quick?
Maybe we should just say we'll list it, because I want to make sure that we have a decent amount, ample time for questions and comments. But that will be included, the link to the Labor Caucus website.
So we have the Labor Caucus website.
And there is the link right there.
There we go. Thank you so much, Greg. And on this, you will find resolutions in support, including the Atlantic North Georgia Labor Council resolution, the Alameda Labor Council resolution that Lawrence had spoken about too, some other model resolutions for organizing endorsements. There's also a link to labor organizations that have already come on that actually I need to update. I'm looking at it right now. But to just give you a little bit of an idea, it's the AFSCMEs, to labor councils, to teachers unions, International Association of Theater and Stage Employees, locally here in Pensacola, have come on as endorsing orgs. So it runs the gamut, the United Auto Workers, retiree councils, so AFL-CIOs all across the country, and the service industry unions. So these are just a smattering of how many unions have come on. But as Lawrence said, we're taking a step further now, and labor has become emboldened and are getting bolder, right? Because of our current situation in our current times. So they are taking it a step further, not just saying, yeah, I agree with this, we support this, but they're saying, I agree with this, I support this, and I'm going to work and build power to make it happen. And that's the point of what we're doing with all of this, right? It's imperative that we continue to build power, and the power necessary to do something big like passing the 29th Amendment. And I call it the 29th Amendment, as many of you know, because the 28th Amendment, Equal Rights Amendment, should be passed, and out of respect for the work that's been done already on their part. So just wanted to give a brief overview of the resources that we have. Again, most important resources is each other. So reach out to any of us anytime. We are here with you in heart, spirit, and in solidarity. So I'll pass it
Great.
back over to
Thank you. All right, we want to open it up now for you to share comments, questions that can be done either in the chat or in person. If you wish to be recognized in person and you are on screen, you can either wave your hand or go to the bottom and access your hand in that way. So I see a couple already. Please, when you do communicate, please identify yourself, where you're from. Try to be as succinct as you are in making a comment or question. We'll go first to Corey, and when you're done, please lower your hand. So unmute, participate, then lower your hand, starting with Corey, then Winston, and then Kylie.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Corey Root, she, her, Central Massachusetts. This has been such a timely discussion. I really appreciate it. And I think there is such an appetite for organizing in this moment. Lawrence, I know you raised the issue of capacity. I know in my efforts to outreach to different organizations, I've come up against a lot of like contact forms and automation. And I'm just looking for advice on how to make sure that this moment isn't lost on any of us.
Why don't we take a couple comments and then maybe people can respond to those if they've been directed. Winston, you want to go next?
Yes, I'm Winston Apple. I'm in Independence, Missouri, and we are one of the 18 states where our Constitution can be amended through the initiative process. I have filed 2 petitions that have been approved for circulation this year. The first one provides for electronic signatures on veto referendums and initiative petitions. And the second one implements a system of proxies for citizens, where anyone who's eligible to vote can assign a proxy to any one member of the Missouri Senate. That's 34 senators to pick from. And any one member of the Missouri House, that's 163 representatives to pick from. I was invited to attend the Organized KC meeting a week ago, Monday morning. It's an organization of labor leaders from all the unions here in the Kansas City metro area. And their jaws were dropping and their eyes were getting very wide. They are cognizant of the fact that half of their members are voting Republican. But if we have a system of proxies in place and we were to do a state version of the PRO Act or any other strong pro-union or pro-worker legislation, we can very easily use proxies to bring all of the movements together. I'm also getting a strong reaction from a lot of Democrats around the state who realize everything good we've gotten done in the last 10 to 15 years has come through the initiative. The Green Party, I was on the Democratic National Committee from 2016 to 2020. I've been invited to speak at the Libertarian Party convention this May. The Green Party's interested. Indivisible people are interested. A fabulous coalition is forming in support of these two amendments that, in my estimation, would instantly make Missouri a perfect democracy.
Mm.
And so
Thanks for that.
I am a former board member of the Kansas City chapter of Move to Amend back when Mary
Mm.
Lindsay was running it
Mm.
in 2015, 2016.
Mhm.
I'm appreciative of the fact that once we get 2/3 of the states to have things like proxies and referendums and the initiative, we could very easily get the corporations are not people, we the people amendment passed at the congressional level. There's also, and I don't have it memorized at hand, there's a great clause in the Missouri Constitution about having the power to keep corporations from abusing people.
Mm.
And of course,
Interesting.
Citizens United overrides that.
Mm.
But I thought it was of note. And I'll just share in closing, uh, it's hard to be proud to be from Missouri when our legislature is doing the things they've been doing. But I wanted to just share the opening lines very briefly of our state constitution. All power is vested in and derived from the people. All government of right originates from the people, is founded on their will only, and instituted for the good of the whole. And these two petitions, these two ballot proposals, I think would make that vision a glorious reality in Missouri. And if we succeed, I'm going to suggest we change our nickname from the Show Me State to the Allow Us to Demonstrate State.
Mm. Nice. Thank you, Winston.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Why don't we go to Kylie next and then Bill?
Sounds great. Thank you all so much. My name is Kylie Madov. I'm currently based in New York City. And my question is just, so this is all very like new for me. I've been in sort of activist spaces for a while, but I've never partnered with organized labor. And so for example, like a city like New York, there's many, many, many different unions that operate here. And so I was wondering what your thoughts are in terms of which union, like how does one choose which union to contact to start building the kind of relationship that you all were talking about during the training? Like how like where do we know, I'm sorry, like how should we determine which union to start prioritizing, I guess, in a city with many different options?
Would imagine there's just a few in New York City. Lawrence, Linda, you want to respond to this one and any comment on any one or ones of the previous two comments or questions?
One thing I was thinking of, Greg, while Kylie was talking, is that it would be awesome if Move to Amend could have a resource where we identify our members like with what their union affiliation is, and that so we could ultimately have that in our database and then reference people in their area that are members of what union. You know, they might want to share that for growth. But
I think we do have a tag of labor. So people who
Okay.
self-identify when they sign,
yeah,
you know,
I
there's
think, yeah.
opportunities. But I'm not sure if under that tag necessarily is a specific union.
Well, then maybe we could get that, you know, maybe somebody like Kylie could put in a query for to get in touch with those people somehow. I don't know. But
So
that's the best.
how would Kylie do that, Lawrence, if you want to let her know?
At this moment, I don't think we have it in place to do that yet, but I'm just thinking because the easiest way is to find people with roots in labor, you know, find people that already are in labor to bring it to their local. But you can also, she can pick those more, the unions that tend to be more sympathetic towards progressive causes and, you know, wanting democracy. The unions we, you know, mentioned earlier, like the service unions, right? SEIU, communication workers. And just call them up from the phone book, you know, and see if she could make an appointment with, you know, get it on their agenda. See if she could get a presentation, or maybe somebody, if she could, you know, schedule that, maybe somebody from her local Move to Amend affiliate could come and give a presentation. So probably the easiest way to reach out to labor is to reach out to your local or closest, nearest by Move to Amend affiliate group, because then you have a whole team that can work on it with you.
The other thing that could be done, Kylie, is we could filter within the New York City area to see how many individuals do have a labor tag. Send something, you know, generic email. Hey, who amongst you would be willing to get together and have an informal call about reaching out to labor? You could be a part of that. We could have somebody from National be a part of that. See who shows up. Those individuals who are connected, see who's willing to do something, and you could help that person or persons in that particular local or locals. I don't know if that would be of interest to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. If you wouldn't mind putting, okay, oh, I see. There you are, Kylie. We will reach out and work with you to send something out. I have no idea how many people are tagged in New York of Labor, but we shall see. Okay. I think next was, and thanks for being open to that. I think next was Bill.
Bill.
Yep.
I think so.
My name is Bill Harris. I'm from Oregon. I'm interested in, well, wait a moment. I was involved deeply in the Move to Amend 10 years ago. It finally tapered off and I got disconnected. Now I don't know the score. How many states do we now have instructions for their Congress to vote in favor of the move to amend? What's the tally now?
Well, the latest count is 8 states have taken, yep, Cole put it in. 8 states have passed either resolutions or ballot initiatives calling for the basic premises of ending corporate constitutional rights and money's free speech. And if you're in Oregon, there's somebody, I don't know if Rick is still on or not, but Rick Stagenborg is from Oregon and
Rick,
trying to doing some work with other Oregonians. So maybe you and he can connect.
I know Rick.
Oh, great. All right.
So that's 8. And that means we have a lot to go to 2/3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, even those 8 are not legal, calls for an amendment. They are just, I guess you could say, symbolic, but they are incredibly important because, as you may know, social change in this country has always been about a 2-track strategy, changing the Constitution or the laws, but preceding that actually is changing the culture. And a piece of changing the culture, a part of that is helping people first understand what the roots of the problems are that they're experiencing, their grievances, and understanding that they have the power, the authority, the right to be involved, the courage to be involved, the ability to be involved, and the possibility of that involvement yielding change to where then that change goes from a vision to being possible, to being doable, to finally being inevitable. That's what has always happened. And that's how movements get created. And part of that is the steps toward that are things like getting organizational endorsements, getting people to pledge, getting communities to pass these resolutions, or even better, ballot initiatives, because that builds awareness. It gets people on the other side of the learning curve, and it gets people sort of engaged, skilled, and collectively in solidarity and figuring out how we can work on this stuff together. So we got a ways to go, obviously, but sometimes, things can happen quickly when the right conditions or the wrong conditions are present, and there's plenty of wrong conditions.
And Greg, how many co-sponsors in the House did we have last Congress?
90 last time.
90, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay, other hands or comments, they can be in the chat. And I'm sorry I did not monitor the chat. If anyone has, and there were some questions or comments, please lift those up.
Catherine's hand is up, and so is Moji's.
Who's first?
I think.
Catherine.
Catherine, please.
Catherine Lewandowski here from Washington State. I've been active. I have some friends I've been active with. I moved to Amend, and I think we are one of the states that's passed a resolution that are telling our elected officials to pass forward. But anyway, but my focus is more on healthcare, and I just want to let you guys know about a bill that we just got introduced into our state Senate that I actually wrote originally as an initiative because I felt it could be run easily as an initiative. And that restricts our health insurance companies from using our health insurance premiums to lobby our elected officials. The senator who introduced it, he actually approved it. He kind of even made it to where they would actually have to, the policyholders would have to make separate donations to a political PAC, just like our unions have to do. They cannot use our union dues to lobby our politically, right? Understanding that the real reason for this initiative and amendment or in legislation would be hopefully to get, 4 or 5 states also to do this. And over the course of a couple of years, have it be something that could be used to not necessarily amend our constitution, but to overturn Citizens United. If we had some really good attorneys that were willing to argue, again, it would be, you know what I mean? Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up there and hopefully throw it out into the universe, and hopefully some of it will stick somewhere. And some other people might find that it would be a good way to go. Because I think it's almost easier to overturn Citizens United than to change the amendment, or to make an amendment to our constitution. Not that that doesn't need to be done also. So I put the information in the chat.
Great.
So I can put a link, but it's Senate Bill 5243.
Great.
Okay.
And your group is what?
Full Washington. We're actually, we're organized to, we're working on creating a universal single payer healthcare system for everybody in Washington state. So that's kind of where
And do you
and
work
so
with?
it's very clear to us that the root cause of our issues is money and politics.
And your local group or state group, is it part of a national coalition?
Well,
Oh.
no, I also work for another national group called One Pair States.
Okay.
But we are just a statewide organization.
Okay. Okay. Didn't know if you were an affiliate of the national group, because we are really trying to connect with the national group dealing with healthcare and try to form a strategic alliance with them as we are trying to do with other groups.
Oh, well, I definitely recommend reaching out to One Pair States at onepayerstates.org.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Moji.
Hi, sorry that my camera is playing games with me. I came to this meeting from a Zoom and the Clubhouse meeting of the peace-seeking Iranian veterans, in which, Greg, you were a wonderful guest in the weeks past. And one of the questions that came up was, how come there is so many civil society organizations? This is from Mr. Ali Jani inside Iran. How come there are so many civil society organizations in the United States, but you have such a mess? I'm paraphrasing. And so my question is, how are you, dear Greg, and others going to have a special meeting or some kind of a special, it could be private, to look at the systemic problems toward organizing our compassion? As you know, I'm working on developing these chambers of compassion in contrast with chambers of commerce. But there are so many systemic issues that prevent the civil society from developing the critical mass that is needed for all of our causes. Are we going to hopefully have a special group to have one or more number of sessions in order to really look deep into the systemic issues to systemic compassion?
Anyone like to take that on? I'll just say very briefly, I think, go ahead, Linda.
I'll just say something. I don't know whether it really responds to what you were saying, Moji, but I just, I do feel that we have been so separated as a people and so siloed by heavy workloads, people working two or three jobs to keep their kids alive, people being insecure in their jobs, and so on and so forth. That I think civil society is really struggling in the United States, and we Moji, again, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but we just don't seem to get together. We don't seem to get that moved about things, despite the fact that we might, in each of our own areas, see that everything that we're doing is related to somebody else's. But I don't know what it is that it takes for Americans really, I'm just going to say it, to get out in the streets and say we're not just Move to Amend, we're not just whole Washington, we are the American people, and this government belongs to us. And I don't know how we do it, Moji, but I just know that we have been told the narrative for so long that we're all different, that we've got races, that we've got immigrants, that we've got whatever, and they're all doing bad things to us. And so if that's anything like what you're talking about, Moji, I agree with you, and I don't know how to do it. Americans just seem insulated and isolated to me.
Thank you, Linda. Our civil society has been so fragmented for so long that I, as a social scientist, have been looking into why is this? So I have put at least 12 years of my theoretical as well as praxis life, organizing life, into looking as to why this is the case, hence the chambers of compassion or intersectional circles. And I'm hoping for some kind of a specialized gathering so that we can talk about why is it and how is it that we got here. Therefore, Trump is a symptom.
Yeah.
We need to really look at that. And the gentleman inside Iran, he was like, how come you're so lucky to have such freedom in the United States to have so many civil society organizations, but why are you having a Trump in the White House, basically? So that's my question and my request. Please, let's look deep. Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to name that, Bill Davis put something in the chat, empathysurplus.com, and thinks it's an organization that you might be interested in. There was also a question from Phoebe from chat. It says, Berkeley, it seems most people's primary concerns are Gaza, understandably so, and defending immigrants, again, understandably so. But we don't want to co-opt those obviously valid movements. But can you please tie those issues to labor, MTA, win-win if we make those connections and show solidarity with anti-Zionists and immigrant communities? You want to take that, Greg?
No, I want to see Lawrence or Linda for both.
Yeah, I would just like to say that.
I just heard you, so I thought maybe you were wanting to.
No, I would just like to say that, that's also incredibly important issue to me because when you see all the videos and you see what's going on, and knowing that it's funded by our tax dollars, it makes it so I haven't slept well for over a year. So I joined a couple of groups to help with that. Jewish Voice for Peace is a good one, and also Bay Area Labor for Palestine. And we're sort of all working together. So those kind of coalitions are really important for growing power. And I think all those organizations can really benefit from hearing about Move to Amend also. So I've been with them long enough that I would like to ultimately have Move to Amend be part of their DNA the same way we are for Veterans for Peace. So that's my goal also in showing solidarity with these other groups.
I'll add something if I may. Whenever I think about military undertakings anywhere, I think of the military-industrial complex and how important arms sales are and how important the money of the military industrial complex is to the decisions that are made for us by our government. I just can't. I'm just sure that that's the way pressure is put on our Congress to decide where we want to support people, right? Where we want to support the war effort. So to me, that's the glaring sort of connection between Move to Amend. And Move to Amend isn't just about, I mean, to my mind, it's not just about getting corporations and big money out of elections. It's also out of our political lives day in and day out. It's what decisions our Congress people make every single day once they're elected. Because we can elect them, we have to vote for them. But then who decides? And there was a study done several, maybe many years ago now, in which the conclusion was that basically we have a democracy of coincidence, and that the regular voter does not get the response that he or she wants from the representative unless it coincides with what the big money wants. If what the big donors want happens to be what I, the voter, want, then lucky me, my senator or my representative will do what I would like. But otherwise, I'm just way down in the pecking order. So that kind of thing always just occurs to me right away when I think, why are we there? Why is it we can't find a war we don't like? It's because so many people make so much money from that.
Yeah, in terms of the political influence, not just military contractors, but this
Right.
last election we saw AIPAC weigh in.
Of
And AIPAC
course,
took
of
out
course.
a lot of progressive
You
representatives
bet.
who were coincidentally very supportive of the We the People Amendment. So
Right.
that has
Right.
definitely affected us. All right, maybe we'll take one or two more comments. If so, before leaving, I do want to lift up what I think is a really important comment in the chat by Deanville, who I think had a response. It's sort of implicit response to what Moji said, is why is there so much separate all of these groups that exist everywhere? And he referenced de Tocqueville, the book Democracy in America, which as he came and analyzed the US, a century and a half ago, he said what made, democracy relative, of course, because we've never had a real democracy. We the people have never been all the people. But he said to the extent that democracy existed in this country, it was because there was a balance between the culture of individuality and between that and collectivity, community. There was a healthy balance. If the pendulum swings too far in one direction, you have problems. And what has happened over the last Habits of the Heart was sort of the modern summation of that, done by various
Right.
Harvard professors a couple decades ago, that said the three institutions that kept in check the individuality, that freedom, that liberty, that, the America where you can go west and, be the John Wayne or Jane, whatever. The three institutions that kept a check on the individuality were the union, the church, the neighborhood organization. And all three of those over the last couple of decades have really been withered away. And
Right.
there's nothing then to sort of counter that individuality that then has been emboldened by big tech, to where now any person and every person can be their own single organization. They can
Right.
find their website. They can do a
Right.
podcast. They can
Yeah.
be an influencer where they have 1,000, 10,000 people. And you know what? They never have to engage in a real way, in a unified way with anybody else. They can do their own thing, be their own thing, and we never come together en masse. It's the individuality of this culture that is let loose, that hasn't been checked by community, that is destroying us.
And ask yourself how much in schools we talk to students about unions or any kind of associations getting together to do something that's good. Instead, it's always the hero, right? It's
Right, the
always
individual.
the individual, the guy who goes up into space or whatever. So that's our narrative that we
That's right.
continue to be told every single day. And I think that's part of it, Moji. I think that's our narrative. We don't hang together, we hang separately.
So we got to be in solidarity, and part of the difficulty in doing that is convenience. It's convenient to just be separate because it takes time and energy to go out, right? And be part of a group where every last thing you want may not be what the group decides, but that's what being with other people is all about, give and take and blank. Well, any other final questions or comments?
Rick's hand's been up for a minute.
I'm sorry, who's?
Rick
Rick.
Stanford.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. Maybe you can't do it because this looks like it's probably in what do you call it, webinar mode. But when you have less than 100 people, it's useful to be able to communicate through direct messaging. So I just want to throw that out there for future meetings.
I don't know what that is, but some Alfonso, who is doing the tech stuff, may well know what that means.
He should know what I'm talking about. It's a way to organize during a meeting when you don't have anybody's contact information. There's no way to reach them later. Thank you.
Okay.
May I say just one more thing quickly? I don't know who said this, but it reminds me of what you just said. Somebody said democracy will never catch on. It takes too many Thursday evenings. Right? And that's where we are. We can do everything from our computers. So thanks.
It's a good thing it's a Wednesday evening then.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to name that Edwin's hand's up, and I think that's the last hand up.
Okay. Thanks for doing that. Thank you so much, Jenny, for keeping track. Thanks, Alfonso, for bringing us on board and doing that tech stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Edwin.
You're on mute.
He needs to unmute.
Yeah, unmute. Well, we are going to. Oh, hello.
I got late to the meeting, and I love Move to Amend. I've been listening and participating as much as I can for so many years. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I think all we can do is keep going. If you look at the history, I'm not a historian, but the fall of the Roman Empire took a couple of centuries, and we're somewhere in the middle of the fall of this one. So it's not going to happen overnight. I wish it would. Things fall apart faster than they get rebuilt. So, we just have to really love our the way we live with each other, the way we think, and not be distracted by arguments, but be enthused to know what, not humanitarian, but I love this word, and it's not a real word, but humanitological, okay? It's the thought behind it all. Where's the, it's the thought behind it all that keeps us together for how many more hundreds of years before we can do what's needed, okay? So I'm a passionate American. I could easily leave this country because I'm so fed up, but I'm here in this group because this is the type of thinking that's going to help us really to inspire each other to find what our dear friend from Persian community was speaking about, to find that daily. We just have to recreate it daily. And this is the way to do it.
Lawrence, you want to have the last word?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Edwin for saying that, because he reminded me of the most important thing in my life lately, and that's just prioritizing making life wonderful for each other. It would just change everything if we spread the word at every single meeting that's a thing, and that if we do that, it can change everything. And also remember in these times, the serenity prayer, to kind of look for the difference between what we can and can't do and find serenity in letting go of the things that we can't do. That's why I love organizing, because it's something we can do.
Very good. And on that note, appreciate everyone being here today. Much love to everyone. Stay safe, stay connected. Feel free to reach out with any questions, queries, requests for information, help, assistance in educating, advocating, but mostly organizing on behalf of peace, justice, love, democracy, and togetherness. So thank you all.
Keep taking
Liberalized
care of
democracy.
yourselves.
Move
Thanks
to
all.
amend.
Back
well.
at you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Corporations are people just like you and me. They love to kick back, drink a beer, watch TV. With all their fine neighbors with their great pedigrees. Corporations are people just like you and me.